All right, so my friends, I've told you before that I'm a Reagan Republican. I'm the old school kind of conservative that would have been looking at Ukraine and Russia and saying, well, how are we not standing up for Ukraine when Russia, an authoritarian right next door, is doing what it's doing to Ukraine? So this is kind of like, what would Reagan do, right? Peace through strength is his answer. And Donald Trump talks about peace through strength, but we're kind of not arming Ukraine the way that maybe we ought to be arming Ukraine and providing everything that they need in order to function. Here's Reagan talking about his doctrine of peace through strength. Let's listen to this.
The special advice that you would give to your successor
Yes.
after 7 years in the White House.
Yes, the special advice, and it was proven very simply with this particular thing we were talking about, and that is deal from strength. Twice the Soviet Union walked away and said they wouldn't discuss things with us. We persisted in implementing and putting the...
And right now, Putin is walking away and saying, Peskov said the other day, we're not going to have a ceasefire agreement. We're not going to honor that because they're doing this thing over here. The Russians don't actually want to come to the table to have a deal, and that's why they're doing it. But listen to how Reagan dealt with it.
The weapons in deploying them, and they came back. And now we have a treaty that's 0-0 and has eliminated an entire weapon system for both sides. So peace through strength is very common sense.
Okay, now there's going to be a second part of how to deal with Gorbachev. Let's listen to this.
Mr. President, do you trust Mr. Gorbachev?
Well, let me say...
Before he says that, let's talk about, should we trust Putin? Probably not. Let's say it's fair to say we should confirm everything that Putin does. Let's set the table that way.
I used a Russian proverb. I'm not a linguist, but I did learn this and have used it several times in his presence. If I'm pronouncing it correctly, it is dovyai no provyai. It means trust, but verify.
Now, that's often attributed to Reagan because Reagan brought it into our vocabulary, but it's actually something that he got from the Russians.
And I think that's the policy that has to be followed. I have cited Demosthenes, 1,000 years or two, back in the Athenian marketplace, said, what sane man would let another man's words rather than his deeds tell him who is at peace and who is at war with him?
Then
yeah. And so when you follow it that way and think about what Russia has done. So let's just take a very simple example. Witkoff just came out the other day and said, well, you know, the Ukrainians are surrounded. And then Trump was echoing this thing. The Ukrainians are surrounded. And, you know, I asked, please just be kind. Don't kill them all or whatever. And there is trusting, but maybe not some verifying that needed to be taking place.
are you not in a great hurry to get a strategic arms agreement with him that you can sign in Moscow?
Well, this is one of the problems. It's a pretty complex negotiation that is going on. Apparently both sides would like to get this 50% reduction in weapons, but it's a little more complex than the INF treaty that we did agree to because of the verification features and all. So I think I am acting on a supposition that he also wants the treaty, and it's a case of not setting a deadline whereby you have to hurry and maybe accept something less than is possible.
Listen to that, not accepting a deadline. Now, think about our scenario right now. What does Trump want? He wants, this thing to be done in a hurry. And because he wants it more, it's much less likely that he's going to get what he actually wants because he wants it badly.
Simply to meet a deadline. So we've set no date, but we're working just as hard as we can to arrive at an agreement.
Okay, so with that, think about this. Like we talked about, we're going to have a peace deal on day one. Well, okay, that was fanciful. That was just campaign rhetoric. But then we said 90 days. And now when 90 days comes and goes, there's going to be extra pressure. So don't think in those kinds of terms. Reagan said a lot more. I'll show you in another video other things that he said. But trust but verify and deal from strength are two pretty good ideas that we could take from Ronald Reagan. All right, tell me what you thought about that. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.